Hi there, welcome to the Beaten Trail. In this episode we have an exciting multi-part video, and this is our trip to WindRock. Now WindRock, Tennessee is a large landmass. We only had a small amount of time to visit. The weather was a bit wet and we had rain showers and cold temperatures for most of the day. Now, being that we didn't have much experience here, we wound up driving around a little bit to find out that most of the trails you get to are up at the top of the mountain, and this would be the G1 trail, G10. We will have a bit of mapping going on here, but for the most part, we focused our time just on riding around a little bit. We were here with Gary and his trail. Myself, I was in my Honda Talon 1000R. We had Shane and his X3 Turbo RR. We did meet up with some new friends, Steve and team in their Wildcat. Well, we did have some exciting times with them a little bit later in the video. When we did locate a branch of trail that was off the main roadway, road-like trail, we went down into the woods and we did notice that it was pretty muddy and a bit rut-filled. Now, normally, not a big deal, but I do have a set of 32-inch tires that are sitting at home that really need to get onto the unit, but being limited storage and height restrictions, the Honda will have to wait to have those bigger tires on. Now, the bigger tires would have been really helpful for this set of trails, just for clearance, but also to navigate some of the rocks and ruts a little better. Now, this is fun. It was, I know a lot of people don't consider this technical, but you certainly don't race down this trail. And Gary, with his smaller unit, Razor trail, even though he had the 28s or 29s on there, he still had a little bit of plateau action, so his skid plate would get stuck on the rut, wheels would dangle a little bit. So that's how deep these ruts were. About 13 inches. Let me do the math, 13, 14 inches. I didn't get out and measure. Now, we made our way through a bunch of different trails, and for the most part, you will have a mix of dirt and rock. This is more of a rocky Appalachia trail versus the trails that we visited down in South Carolina and Georgia. The view was very nice. It was at the cloud layer, so we did have a bit of in and out of fog. There was a tornado warning, according to a friend of mine who lives down south of Knoxville, Tennessee, but it was to the south of us, so we didn't have any concerns other than rain. Later on in the evening, though, we did realize that that storm line was going to be making it up towards us. We had expected to be off the trail by dark, and that certainly did not happen. If you watch this whole series, you'll see that we wound up being out on the trail for longer than we expected to. We enjoyed the water crossings. There was a good amount of water. Aside from the fact that it was a rainy day, it was a good variation of trails. Normally, when we go out, ride, Carolina Adventure World, it was a foggy day, but it wasn't too wet and muddy. It had its dedicated wet and muddy areas. This, if you do go to WindRock, you should be expected to be able to handle all the rocky areas. But if you're going to go after some rain, you will run into these low-lying areas, and where the water does pool, nothing really deeper than a foot. Still enjoyable. Do bring a change of clothes, and do bring an extra outer gear, depending if you have a full enclosure. For some reason, we did not go with the windshields, only because I don't have my windshield wiper functional just yet. You either wipe the visor or you wipe the windshield. So we will be getting that all set up shortly. I believe we'll also be doing a test of a Kemimoto window shield unit for the Honda as well. That should be coming and shipping, and we'll do a test on that as well. Now, some of these trails were, I always like saying they're a little off camber, but in certain cases we had a little bit of angle that was, I don't know, not the most comfortable, but we got through it. And here Shane is at least giving me some direction as to which way to go. He went ahead, and he's probably got the most capable machine and the most experience of all of us. So he was out there making sure everybody did not run into any issues. Gary and the Wildcat, they were down in front of me, and I know that, like I said, Gary was having some issues with the skid plate. He was sliding down on that, but as you can see, it was a foggy day, and certainly it was very different from what we're used to. The ascending and descending of these trails through Trail 32 down through the mountains, it was certainly enjoyable. As you can see, some of these times Gary was a little bit leaning off to one way, but the depth of the rut actually helped him a little bit and held him in place and prevented any more roll for the vehicle. Some of these hills you just had to go down slowly, just so you weren't sliding wildly out of control. We did have the rain increase as the day went on, so by the time we got to this trail, it was not a pouring rain, but it was more significant just the mist and the clouds passing through at our height level on the hills. We definitely want to go back to WindRock. I understand that you can also hire a Jeep to go with, and they can give you the full tour, and I guess that's a little bit more insurance about getting winched out. And we all have winches, we all have tow ropes. Certainly we would welcome having an extra team member out there just for the sake of security. We don't go on black trails. We're certainly not going to be doing advanced trails. This was probably as challenging as we like to do. Here Gary is a little bit tilting and was a little uncomfortable, and as you can see I slid to get down there, but once I was down there he just needed a little bit of counterweight, which I generally will just stand on his rock sliders, although they're probably not rated for my weight, to at least just get him to slide down properly. More of a level descent, since he did not have the clearance for this rut and he was leaning to the passenger side to the right. Now certainly a lot of people will say this rut-filled trail, really you're just on a rail system. It's like a roller coaster. You're sliding down, sliding down. It just, when you do get to have a little bit of center and you're high centered on rock or on the mud, I guess it can be a little uncomfortable if you're leaning off. And this, not that it was a sheer cliff, but the hill going down off to the right certainly was quite a view and a ways down. Nonetheless, a lot of fun. Gary would do the same for me, and we all were just looking out for each other. So we really just wanted to make sure we got down through this trail without breaking anything, really. Not having the experience of how much further out do we have to go to get back. was our main concern. We didn't want to do any damage to the machines. So during some of this, I am narrating on Facebook Live. So I do have a little bit of dialogue that you may hear in the background, radio chatter. And for the most part, we just go ahead and try to enjoy and have a good time. And finally, making it back up. You know, obviously we all wear boots, but slippery mud is slippery mud, so I had to precariously climb back up, holding onto roots and rocks, and finally got back into the Honda. I didn't realize, I figured, well, I'm going to get out, I got to get back up. So maybe I should carry a set of clamps or a set of ice pick to go ahead and climb up. Certainly if this was all ice and snow, I would not have made it back in the vehicle. Just for the sake of full disclosure, it was a slippery and messy ride, but we had fun. And then it was my turn to take a ride down, and of course a little precarious, but I know a lot of people watching these videos when I had them posted up on Facebook Live prior and our Facebook Reels. The people didn't really think it was that bad. I guess you have to be there because the camera angle never really shows the true camber, the true angle, the depth, and the height. So I would say that, you know, you probably will enjoy this. If you don't like hills and you don't like sliding in mud, well, that's another story, but it was a great time. We had a good time. I mean, not to make it dramatic, it is a different type of trail that we're used to and we never had been on here before. So definitely recommended. But if you do go, make sure that you do go early in the day. I believe we got there 10 or 11 around lunchtime because we were driving up from an early departure out of Georgia from our trip down at Durham Town and Augusta and Athens area. So once we were making it up there, we got there later in the day. Insta360 camera gives a unique angle on some of these images and videos, and so we like to put some of these in here for you. I know some people get nauseous when they watch it, but we like the angle. It gives a different perspective also, with items you cannot see, rocks down in the front of one of these. But regardless, you can see that we did have a little bit of water running down the mountain after the rain was picking up, but just not overly rocky. Some of these were a little big, but nothing that we wouldn't be able to get through. Again, I just wish I had my 32-inch tires, ordered a Tuss Terabyte set for the Honda, and have to put those on. If I remember correctly, this is where our friend that we had met in the Wildcat had bent his steering rod, and that would play a little bit more into a future video where he was not able to maintain straight and level driving. Well, straight driving, not level. The wheels were, sticking outward. But not to ruin the ending, but it became darker and rainier. And these hills were they were fun to do. It just, the colder and wetter that you get, I guess the moral of the story is make sure that you have a decent waterproof outfit and that you are just layered for temperature and for comfort. In this particular trail, not overly difficult, but some of the rocks are of a larger size. By the time I got going up here following Gary, I was a little bit too wide to make the trail in a proper angle, and I kind of got stuck between two big rocks and couldn't make the turn. If I had my 32-inch tires, I wouldn't have this issue, but clearance here on stock 28s just was not good enough. I can feel my front passenger wheel coming up, only because the back driver wheel was not gripping on anything and was dangling between the rocks, so I was a bit diagonal tilting, and as I tried, I could not see where my wheels were, so that definitely would make a front camera handy, but don't have that on this unit currently, so something to add, front and rear cameras, just to have. I don't know if it really would have helped me here. It just would have been me doing a better job making that turn, which I didn't do. Once I tried it myself a little bit, the guys came back and guided me in the right direction. Just a little bit of experience would have helped, but again, with the clearance that I had or didn't have, I was kind of balanced on that rock until I could make that turn. And it felt like I was going to roll back either too, and even in low, I just felt a little uneasy doing that, so. Shane has a lot more experience than I do, and the extra eyeballs that Gary provide definitely were helping me at least traverse that one rock where I just was stuck on my bottom end. And we finally made it up, but always good to have someone to spot you. And it's always important to have cell service while you're out riding, and I know that is a little difficult at times. You can run into some areas that you will not have anything. So it's good to have GPS at least, and a tablet that can record that. I have to revamp my tablet. I do have 8-inch Samsung, but for the most part, I was utilizing my AT&T service. We had a little bit of challenges on my ride command track. Gary did get a good connection. He was able to record the track through the Razor ride command and then upload it into the cloud. So that's what you will see in this. You will see our actual track that we came through. Now, of course, we'll put up how many miles we did, but it was a good 6 or 8 hours that we were out on the trail. So we're not going to do an estimate here of how much we traveled, but it was quite an experience, and it went on through the evening. So we had come to another turn, and Shane was up front in his X3, and like I had said, it's the most capable of our machines, widest track. Well, maybe I'm a little bit wider in the Honda, but as he came around this turn, he was able to navigate some of the rutted water obstacles. And I know Gary was next in line, and I know there was a pause because it took Shane a moment to get through. But as he did, I knew that there possibly could be an issue with Gary's clearance again.